Well, thank you all for coming. We're excited to chat over lunch. So I think lots of folks have already kind of said hi to each other, but why don't we just go around and say it to make sure everybody has said hi to everybody. So if you are on our school board school folks, let us know your name, what class you were in, and then maybe your day job is good, and also maybe your almost night job. And then for our Chicago crew, just let us know your name and then how you're connected to the school board school stuff. Sally,
I just finished chewing.
Yeah.
While I'm in mine. So I'm Sally Grimes. I am class 3, which was the COVID class, unfortunately. So we didn't get to eat these meals. Everybody else did. And my day job, I'm the executive director of an organization called Activities Beyond the Classroom. And we do extracurricular and enrichment programming for Cincinnati Public Schools, and we're getting ready to move beyond CPS as well, so expanding to other districts.
Alright, well I'll go. So I am Kendra Mapp, and I am class 4 of school board school, and my day job is I'm a licensed professional counselor for a sound mind counseling service. So I work with families, individual counseling, adolescents, children, couples, you name it, companies. But interestingly enough, my night job as a school board member for CPS is going to become my day job as well. So I'll still counsel clients, but I'm taking a little step back just to really get an understanding for the role. This is something that I really want to be intentional about, and so I think it will be, beneficial to my overall wellness to make sure that I just pace myself. And so I'll still work, but I'll be very mindful about how I go about it. Yeah.
Very smart.
And I'm Marcia Butel. I was in school board school class 2. And thanks to this wonderful woman here, this keeps on just keep on pushing.
Oh, yeah. Lisa's gonna get you out there.
So my primary day job that pays the bills, my husband and I have financial services business. He's had it for 40 years, it's 40 years.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm a licensed advisor as well. And that's what pays the bill, along with I teach pre-licensing class for the life insurance agents. And then as a result of school board school, I started a nonprofit. And that's my need to be really daytime job until I hire some help.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. And did I answer all your questions?
Tell them what your nonprofit does. Yeah.
So my nonprofit is called Connecting for Impact, and three tenets to Connecting for Impact: high quality education, civic engagement, and entrepreneurship for the Black community. So focused on lifting us out of poverty. And the focus of it initially was on the civic engagement part. And I'm happy to say I am a proud product of the Chicago public school system.
Hey.
Class of 1974, John F. Kennedy High School.
Wow. Okay. Where'd you go to elementary?
I went to Victor Herbert on the west side. I don't know, it's off of Monroe, and I think it's called something else because I drove past. It's not called Victor Herbert anymore. It's called, I can't remember, but it's something else. It's near Levitt and Monroe.
Okay.
And then McKinley was my 7th and 8th grade, which is called something else too. I think it's the Chicago Bulls, something Academy on Adams.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I drive through there when I go home. Yeah, so I was happy y'all come.
I know. When we heard Chicago was coming, we were like, well, we have to have Marcia. Okay, so we, over the next half hour or so, so we've been talking with our Chicago crew about how important kind of it is to be part of a network, and about how you kind of build relationships within your class and then amongst each other, that kind of good stuff. And so I've got a couple of questions here, but really wanted this to be Chicago team asking lots of questions, getting what they need from this. So we asked these folks to be here to talk about what their experience in school board school was and what they're up to right now. And so I think one of the first questions that we wanted to ask is, we've been talking a lot about the importance of bringing,
I don't feel like I have a
totally forgot to have them introduce themselves.
Yeah.
Sally, post the feedback. Go for it. Sorry, go for it. Yes.
Hi, I'm Bridget Lee. I'm one of the starting the school board school in
Okay.
Chicago. We're calling it All Chicago,
Okay.
which is really exciting.
Mhm.
In another life, I was a middle school teacher, and then I've kind of been a bureaucrat since then. So I'm excited to jump into this work.
Great. That's great. And from Indiana. So.
And I'm from Indiana. Go.
We can fight some later.
I'm Ignacio Lopez. I am from Chicago. I was born in Puerto Rico but raised in Chicago. I'm also a product of the Chicago Public Schools in Logan Square from the north side.
way up north.
And so I work with National Louis University. I'm the deputy provost. I used to be former high school teacher, administrator, professor of education, and then wound up going into administration in the higher ed side. And when this opportunity came about, and Bridget's just awesome. She's a rock star. It was like, yeah, we wanna help. So, under the National Louis University, currently supporting the All Chicago program, it just makes sense because NOU is a 130-year-old, institution that's really was born out of the kindergarten movement. It used to be called the National College of Education, and then changed the name to National Louis University. But it's pretty much, like something like 30% of teachers in the Chicago Public Schools graduate from National Louis University. So we already have like a foot in the door, and also some of the principals and leaders are from NOU. And so it's just a great match and a great fit, and really excited to be here and learn more and help grow All Chicago. And I think what School Board Schools has been doing is just amazing, and so hopefully we can come close to it.
Yeah.
We just want to be half.
You're doing amazing.
You
You're
guys
doing good.
You guys are
It's gonna be
awesome.
great. Yeah.
Hi everyone, Cheyenne Blackman with the Chicago Public Education Fund. Our mission is to invest in talented leaders who lead these institutions, and it's like through programming, networking, coaching, and then also resources, tangible resources. My connection to All Chicago is through Bridget. Bridget used to be my director at the fund, and as we are transitioning more into like the policy sphere at the fund, we'll work alongside Bridget. So yeah, I do communications at the fund. So that's like my connection to this.
So can I ask a quick question, just to make sure I'm grounded?
Yeah.
So All Chicago is the school board school version in Chicago.
Yes, we're licensing this
Yes.
Okay.
amazing work.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the team is
Wonderful.
here.
And now Chicago's moving towards a elected
Yeah, you
board
got it.
instead of a
Appointed.
appointed board.
Yeah, the elections are this year in November.
Oh, wow, okay,
Yeah, and
okay.
when it's fully elected, it's gonna be
20, yeah, it would probably need to be.
I know, right?
Yeah.
When we think ours is.
Nah.
I mean,
What's a much
working
bigger
with 7
system.
relationships is hard enough.
21. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
21.
Yeah.
21.
So we've been talking this morning so far about the importance of really bringing together a diverse group of people for each of the classes because of how much you learn from other people's experiences. We've also been talking about building this like warm, welcoming environment, this culture as well. And so I think where I'd love to start is just hearing a little, I often joke that like on staff we don't have every parent does not have a favorite kid. We don't have a favorite class. Although I said this in one of our team calls, and every person on the team was like, "That's not true," because they are all from. And we've never hired somebody who isn't from one of our school classes. So Andy's like, "Class 2 is best." Maya's like, "Class 3," and of course Andrew was like, "Class 5 is the best class." So they have some bias.
We did COVID.
You did.
Yeah,
That's
you
right.
all
Yes.
had to give it to you.
Yes. And then we're always like, class 1 is always like, we're the OGs. Like, we started this whole thing. So everyone's got their thing. But, they do each have their own culture. Each class does, And so I'd love to just start by hearing from you all a little bit about, how maybe the diversity of your classmates pushed your thinking or helped you. And then maybe a little about, like, the culture of your class and maybe how that helped you learn as well. Maybe either one of those or both of those. However you want to think about it or tackle it.
I'll go first. I think for me, with class 2, it was good for me because of where I am in my seasons. I was the OG, one of the OGs of the class.
No, Gay. Gay was right. Yeah,
Mhm.
73.
So, we had a lot of diversity of thought about, you know, our kids when they were in school. But then you had a lot of younger parents, people who had kids that, and then some people who didn't have children in school but were connected. So you had a lot of variety of experiences at the table, a lot of varieties of lifestyles at the table. But it was good to just sit back and kind of hear other people's perspective, to remember that yours isn't the only one. And I think I had a lot of good ideas, a lot of good energy came out of there. And then the challenge is always when you go through an experience like that though, and this is where I think Elisa and her staff really shine, is to make sure that we stay engaged. That's the hard part. You go through something like that and it's like, oh my God, this is just awesome. Then you go back and then life happens. So it's really, you know, trying to keep all those perspectives still at the table. So some of the follow-up activities I think has helped, at least it's helped me stay engaged, and it's helped me to keep talking to people and stuff. You know, I had forgot you quit calling. We was talking at lunch. We didn't talk about school. But anyway, that's how we had. Okay, yeah, it was. So, and then, you know, the cross-class interactions as well. So I think that was good for me to just hear and then we were a big enough class where you got a lot of variety, but not too big. Because I think we were about 20 of us. 23, yeah. And everybody, you know, pretty much everybody finished too. But I think we only lost 2 of us again, so we ended up with 23. Yeah. So it was good from that perspective. Yeah.
I'll say for me, I do agree with you in the sense that I think Elisa and Annie and just the team overall were always very intentional with creating a safe space to have very difficult conversations and to do the hard work. And so one of the things that really stands out to me is our first meeting. We were actively working on our first meeting in the park. But it just felt very fluid and very organic. And I'm in the mental health profession, so that's something that is really important to me. And I just really always felt that I could show up to be myself. And I sensed that other people felt that very same thing, that they could just show up unapologetically and speak their truth, whatever that truth is, without even offending anyone else. And from my understanding, I mean, I don't even know if anyone felt offended during our conversations. We just had an opportunity to hear different perspectives and give our input, right? And work through those very critical moments of like thought. So I think that you all did a really good job of just laying that foundation. And even when we found ourselves being frustrated about, and Andy probably could share this, we actually went to visit 2 schools that particular day. And we were working, or preparing to work on our, what was it?
The pitches?
The pitches, yes. And I'm like, I don't really even know what to do. How do we make change in this very huge system, right? And to know that other people were like, thank you for sharing that, because I feel the very same way. And so it's just always been a safe space. There is definitely variety in terms of perspective. I love that we had people that worked at the university in higher ed, so we can tap into understanding how that impacts education and what that connection should be like on the elementary or high school level. How should we be preparing our students? Someone that's a parent or someone that's actively an administrator in the school. I even love that we had writers. And I recognize how important that is, just having gone through the campaign, right? What it means to, I didn't write an op-ed. I didn't get that far, but just knowing, you know, what that entails in terms of having that messaging out, or how we could possibly think about saying the things that we need to say, but how it's being communicated or how it would be received. And so, you know, diversity is really just everything, and I'm always about talking and encouraging, you know, everyone to like pour into whatever we're working on from their own strengths, And I think that School Board School has such a great way of just highlighting everyone's strengths and just the assets. From my experience, no one felt left out. And what I love is, at first I was probably, like, why are we doing this? But we had a home team, right? Because when you get comfortable, you're like, I just want to stay on my team. But you have your home team, and you also have your team that you are working actively on the project with. And I think each one brought two different experiences, but it was well needed. I think my work team, it stretched me, right? It helped me to, okay, I gotta research a little bit more. We doing, Google Docs, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's what they're thinking about, So, but it really stretched me, and I think the home team very much was a safe space. So all of those things for me really helped to add to my experience. And when it was time for me to run, so many people were just so supportive and willing to help in whatever way capacity they could, such as Ms. Mutel, such as Sally. So and just really building those relationships that extend beyond just the cohort.
How did y'all help with that?
So, it's one of my adopted kids.
Okay.
So when I found out she was, actually I was really excited she was part of School Board School, and Larry Hodge as well. I went to kids. So my son had a group of friends at UC, so I've been knowing them since they were in college. And so whatever Kendra needed, that's what I did. She called and I, heeded the clarion call. This happened to me, and oh my God, what do I do? And then I got Kendra Matt T-shirts and went and here, both of her, so whatever she needed.
Yes, everyone just was really instrumental. Isabel, starting out early on, I'm like, okay, you work in the school. What's going on in school? Okay, from a mental health perspective, from an academic perspective, so
There were a lot of conversations.
There were a lot of conversations. Just even being supportive and just encouraging me along the way. Just the other day, Isabel said, okay, when's the swearing in? And so I appreciate that. Sally, you and your perspective, first of all, inviting me to your home, right? We had an event at her home, and she was just really interested in wanting to know about, what made me decide to run, and just having a conversation and just supporting me and cheering me on. So it didn't matter what it was. There were so many people that just showed up to support in so many different ways.
I could repeat everything they said. I'll share a little bit of a different perspective maybe so when I decided I wanted to do School Board School, I was the fundraising director at Activities Fed in Classroom, but I knew I was going to be moving into the executive director role. So I wanted to understand how the whole system worked as well as I could. And it was interesting for me, there's another program in town called We Lead, which is through the chamber, and it's for women, professional women. And I did that one, which was great, but I never quite felt like I fit in because it's a lot of mucky mucks and corporate heads and then me. And when I got to School Board School, though, I was like, oh, these are my people. Now I found my people. But I feel like the people I've met and the people in this room beyond who I've met through School Board School are the people who really, really want to make a difference, whether or not it means they're going to get credit. It's not political. It's not something that it's going to turn into a fight. These are just people who really want to make a difference and who want to figure out how in their own little way they can do that, or big way, whatever, board member, whatever that may be. So I feel like it's a really, really strong community of people who really care for the right reasons, and that's not always the case.
I want to add to what Sally said. I think it's important to also know that at least for me, when I started, what I thought I was coming to School Board School for became something completely different. I had no intentions on running to become a school board member. As I share my background as a licensed counselor, as well as I'm a former educator. So for me, I was joining because I said, okay, I can be a community advocate. I got that down pat, right? But throughout our time together, I mean, we just learned a wealth of information about how, you know, the system of education works and how we can be doing so much more, you know, collectively. And so throughout that time, things began to transition, and I remember having the conversation saying, I think I'm supposed to run for school board, right? And everyone said yes. And so, you know, I think there's beauty in the fact that what we may think we're going, like our reason or our why as to why we're showing up for the cohort can become completely different. And so just to see how it evolved, I think was just a wonderful thing. And I think that happened for several people.
Yeah. Isabel, we're so glad you're here.
Hi, sorry, I'm late.
Isabel, do you want to start?
Admin.
I was going to say, start by introducing yourself. So tell us what your name, the class you're in, and your day job about what.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Isabel Kalubi Harper, I'm a proud member of Class 4. I have been an educator for a long time, either in public school, charter school. I also worked at the Cincinnati Museum Center for a long time with our youth program. I'm currently an assistant principal at Roberts Academy.
Oh.
So I spent 5 years there as a teacher, teaching 7th and 8th grade social studies. I wanted to be a part of school board school just because I was trying to decide what I wanted to do as far as I knew I no longer wanted to be in the classroom, but I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to go. So as through my time with school board school, I knew that I did want to be an administrator, so I went to Teachers College and got my public school leadership master's degree. Like literally, like was applying as school board school was finishing. I was like, am I doing this? Am I not going to do this?
And we told her you're doing
it. But what I will say is that the network has been invaluable. One of my classmates, Caitlin Donner, who was an assistant principal, like called me and was like, you need to apply for the assistant principal pool now. Here are the people that you need to talk to. Here are the names that you need to email. If they don't get back to you, call me. So that has been invaluable. There are 3 new administrators at our school. I'm not new to the building, but we have 3 new administrators new to the role. Yes, he came from Idea Price Hill. Yes. So when we had our kind of kickoff at the beginning of the year, where all the schools are there and all the partners are there at Washington Park, you know, people were coming by and I would see people through school board school that I knew. And so he kind of looked at me and was like, okay, I need to figure out what this is. Because I had Kendra, you know, she came over, she was running, a couple other people who were running, current school board members were there. I had a long conversation with the vice mayor, and so he's like, how do you, and I am not somebody who particularly sees myself as a networker. I just, like Sally said, like I just found my people, and so it was like, I became comfortable in that. So now when we see each other, or when Kendra says to me, let me know what you need, like I know that she needs that. You know, and there are other board members or other people throughout the district who are like, oh, I know that you did these things. I know that means that you know these people. Now I know I kind of need to move a little bit differently. So.
I need to ask you later, I have 2 new employees who came from the museum center. So I was like,
If not, my husband does, because he's still there.
What about Bridget, Noxie, or Cheyenne? What do you want to know from them about their experience or what they're up to now or the network or anything?
I think the one burning question I have is like when you were maybe in a disagreement, like in the experience. I think just speaking as a woman, like I don't know that I agree with everybody on the board. And so like, were you challenged in this experience to confront issues that were not issues or like opinions or thoughts or something that was contrary to what you were believing, and like how did you engage in that? Like,
Trying to remember.
Yeah, I don't know that class 3 really had that much, as much because we were virtual. I think it was
Oh.
easier for people to just kind of mute themselves instead of really having a conversation. Like, I don't know, at least in the groups I was in, do you know anything about if
I think there were a
topics?
few times, like I can remember one in particular where we did our school visit. It was a virtual school visit, right? But I remember one of the groups had a really long conversation, but it was in a smaller group, so it might not have been your group, around the school that we had gone to. They all the kids wear like ties and et cetera, and the principal was talking about it like this is a sign of respect and blah blah blah. And there was a conversation of like, is that just getting our kids ingrained in white dominant culture, right? And like, why is that what we're saying is respectable? And there was a really, there was a lot of differing opinions on this. Of like, I think similar to what we were saying before, of like, well, we have to teach our kids to navigate the system as it is to be successful, while also wanting them to hold on to their own cultural identity and push back on this system. And how do we do those things? And so there was definitely different opinions on, on the end, like, would you want to send your kid to a school where that was the case if you didn't believe that this was how you wanted your kid to dress every day? And so they think there were conversations like that. That was, I can remember, that's one I can remember from class 3 in particular. Our most recent class, it's just when I was talking about clothing, reminded me as well too, had a pretty intense conversation at one point about what the girls were wearing. And like whether or not, because we talked about like changing dress code policy because the girls were getting dress coded a whole lot more than boys, so they were missing teaching time. And so why can't girls, not on the girls to make the boys feel comfortable, right? Should they be able to wear whatever they want? There was someone in the room who was a principal who was saying, that might be true, and also it causes a ruckus when a girl comes in dressed like, well, okay, so who are you pulling aside, the girl, or are you pulling aside the boys to say like this is actually how you should treat, anyway, so there was like those, but it was actually a conversation about it. It wasn't necessarily, they don't have to come to this, they don't have to, and I think, it sounded like it might have been you who had said this, that we don't have to listen to agree with each other, we have to listen to understand each other.
Sounds great.
I really think you might have been the one year to say that to us. That like, yeah, we don't all have to listen to that. So they think that's the point, right? Is that like we're not listening to say everyone in the end is going to decide whether girls should be able to wear tank tops or like, but like we're going to all just actually understand where each other's coming from by the end of this.
And I think to your point too, one of the things that school board school does really well, and I think that I even texted Lisa while I was in school, that we spend a lot of time understanding who we are as individuals and kind of like what our path is that has led us here, so that when we are in disagreement, we understand that we're not necessarily, like, it's not against the person, it is like, our ideas don't necessarily mesh, but it's not a personal attack on you, because we have spent a lot of time getting to know each other and understanding each other and where we come from. So if those disagreements arise, then it's never taken as something personal. It's just like, okay, we have two different perspectives. We may not necessarily agree. We may not be able to find a compromise, but at least at the end of the day, like, I can still talk to you as a person, and it's not anything personal.
I'm trying to rack my brain. You know that was for real.
You remembered your elementary school.
But kind of to Isabel's point about being immersed in learning who we are, and I think I know for me that was the journey I was on when I went to school board school, because I had run for the school board before, and kind of came to the conclusion of I'm not doing that again. But I probably need to be in this training to figure out how do I marry the passions that I have together. And so I was focused on absorbing more so than I probably did share my opinion. But I don't remember any really intense conversations in our class. it's not that we all agree on everything. I think we all might have just been in that, we're just gonna suck all this stuff up. And
I think so. Like even the conversation you referenced, I don't remember it as being particularly full of conflict.
No.
It was very open and
Yeah.
honest and vulnerable for everybody giving their perspective, but it didn't feel like any kind of conflict.
Yeah.
And I don't think we were, I don't remember us being tasked really to solve a problem. So, but as a school board member, you will be asked to come together and agree on a solution that everybody can live with. And if nothing else, just having those dialogues to understand how to do that and how to do it in a way that everybody's left with their self-esteem and their feelings intact is really the goal of it all. Because there shouldn't be a win-lose. It needs to be a win, and who is the win for is really the children. So to me, that's how you have to remember who's your real customer.
Right.
It's the kids at the end of the day. I don't know. And remember, you didn't have any intense.
Not really. I mean, I would say I didn't hear the full question, but I think I got what we're asking.
Yeah.
But I remember. So my background was I was a principal of a charter school in California. And so then coming here, charters in Ohio are very different. I also started the program 2 weeks after I moved here, so I was still learning a lot about Ohio in general. But I remember one of our classmates, I sat next to them, and they had very strong feelings about charter schools. And we had a wonderful conversation that, we talked through all sorts of things. And we didn't come to them saying, we totally agree on everything now. But it was just, this space to be able to engage. And to that point of, them knowing who I was and me knowing who they were allowed us to have this conversation and say this is my experience with it, this is your experience with it, and then think about, again, to the client or customer, okay, so what does this mean moving forward? What are you going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? And so it was I remember just being in the charter world, you can always feel I don't want to say it if and it allowed the space to have these conversations.
From my experience, I don't remember us ever having any contentious moments. But one thing that I valued, and I probably won't say it the way that you all said it, but we would always have to do surveys after every class. And so many surveys. But one of the things, and I'm hoping I'm saying it the way that it was communicated, was are you allowing yourself to be put in a position to learn more or acquire more information? So not being so rigid in your thinking to just believe that this is just what it is, but there can be more that you don't know. And so when you acquire more information, are you willing to ultimately maybe see things from a different perspective? And I value that because that keeps you in a state of having a constant growth mindset. And so I think that it didn't allow me to be completely rigid in my thought. Just because it was my experience didn't mean that it was someone else's experience, and that they could be sharing information that could really be helpful to me understanding the picture a little bit more. And to state how that applied for me going throughout just the campaign experience and going through endorsements and having to, speak in front of people. People are not going to always agree, but to you all's point as well, being comfortable in who you are and knowing that your experience is valid and that you add something to the space and to the conversation. And you're right. I taught in the charter school. We taught at the same charter school, right? Her son taught at the charter school, right? And I would call, because I call Miss PT, I call her mom. So, and I would call and I would say, okay, I got an endorsement coming up. It's with with this organization or whomever, and she would remind me to stay steadfast and who I am. I'm like, I am, right? But that conversation about charter schools did come up. Well, we believe in public schools. Okay, I believe in public schools as well. I'm a product of public schools, but my experience has been in a charter school, and that was my foundation. I'm not going to negate where I come from. This has taught me the basis of education, what I know. And so I really had to be confident in you know, just my experience. And it was a beautiful thing, because I walked out of one endorsement, I said, oh, I'm probably not gonna get that. Because it was a difference of perspective, but I remember saying to them, I appreciate you sharing your experience. And this is my experience. And it was well received, it was respected. And so I think just really, you know, encouraging people to know that you can have those difficult conversations. It could be complete polarities, but just knowing that they're able to come into balance and still work together.
I have a logistical question, maybe. So you all have day jobs and night jobs. What was it like to balance, you know, going through the program with work and kids and family and all the other stuff that is also work? What was that like? Any barriers that popped up? How did you navigate those? Just, yeah, more about your experience with that.
I know for me, I had to like get my village on board. So, you know, I had the schedule of our Saturday meetings. My principal was very supportive because he was always looking for like me to have leadership opportunities. So when I was like, so there are going to be times where I'm going to be out, he's like, I got you, just give me the dates, you'll have coverage. Those Saturdays were long Saturdays, but you know, just communicating with my husband, my mom, whomever, to like, this is what's going to happen. The latter part of the program when we were doing our what was it?
Group projects.
Yep. So that took a lot of like planning as well too, like planning with your group, knowing like when you all are available to meet, having grace when you have kids, things come up to say, I might not be able to meet with you all during this time, but this is what I'm like, I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna read the notes, do my part, to stay on top of it. And so it really did take a lot of planning, but it also like having the support of, for me personally, having the support of my school leader and of my family to make sure that I had the time and space to do what I needed to do.
So, being a counselor, I'm able to have a lot of flexibility with my schedule in terms of when I'm, you know, a scheduled client. So that worked out. I really think it's what Isabel said. It was just about having that village, you know. And my kids, well, our kids are, you know, younger, and a lot of times, not so much through the school process. Although it was welcome, you could bring your kids. You needed to bring your kids to class. You could. You would have parents volunteer to say, I'll watch them. You know, so it was just something that just worked out. You know, throughout the campaign, my kids would, wherever I was, they were as well. But it really was just having that strong family and community support. And just, yeah, and communicating out to say, hey, this is what I have to do today. My kids were on board with knowing what we had to do, you know, for that particular day. They would often remind me of but I think, yeah, from my experience, it probably was a little less stressful in terms of the logistics because I could navigate my own schedule. Where I found the challenge was you know, having to do the classes and aligning it with my children's schedule. So like my daughter had competition and things of that sort. So, and it actually always worked out. It was never an issue. There was only one time that I had to miss, and that was but even in that, there was a beautiful thing. My daughter had competition. It was our last meeting where we gave our vision for impact statement. And I just was able to come up with alternatives, and I said, well, I'll do a video so I can still present. And so I was able to submit that. And my mom, yes, on my behalf to accept like my certificate, and I was still able to zoom in and, you know, watch it actively. So it all.
And the video was remarkable.
Yeah,
it was her like campaign declaration, and she was like running for office. Had us all in tears and giving her mom her certificate. Was it
was my grandmother.
Grandmother there too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so she wasn't able. My grandmother wasn't able to make it. It was my aunt that
Oh,
made
your
it.
aunt,
But
okay.
the video was
Right.
highlighting
Yes.
the work that my grandmother did.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the COVID year was probably a little different for you all of how you made this all work, but yeah.
Yeah, because everything was virtual for
Mhm.
us, so it was like everything else during COVID,
Yeah.
which is weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably the thing that was different for me though is I have 2 teenagers, one who's now in college, but they would be hanging out behind me or up in front of me, and so they would hear a lot of it. So because they were kind of unintentionally participating, I would hear questions from them like, well, what is that all about? Well, here's my opinion, and so that was kind of cool.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm kind of like Kendra because of business, so I have a lot of flexibility. It was very, very, very helpful to have the schedule up front because I'm a planner. I put
Yes.
everything on the calendar. The only conflict I had was very early in the program. My oldest daughter was getting ready to give birth, and I had to go to DC, and the little chick decided she didn't want to come. So I missed the one where the school board members came. And so that's the only one I missed
Okay.
was because I was actually out of town and it wasn't streamed or anything, but that was okay. But other than that, it was, I had everything planned. Probably my challenge is I am the village for the child at Tier with her 2 girls. Can you? No. And just, kind of working around some other things that happens on the weekends. But other than that, it wasn't, I think knowing when you have to have things and when you have to participate was the biggest help for me.
I think offering.
I was just gonna say, I know I wanna make sure we get back to work on time, and so, but go ahead, Annie.
I was gonna say offering some supports is helpful with logistics,
yeah.
and so like we have had. It's hard for me today. People bring their kids. When I was doing logistics, I sat with Jackie's son a few times, who was
adorable. Oh my
all
God.
day would just come and just show up and be there. And I'd be like,
Yes.
this is well
It's remarkable. We'd like give him some markers and he'd be like, this is amazing. He'd like entertain himself.
He, like,
He's like,
helped
who
me
is
set
this
my
child
child.
and why did neither of my child?
We also had someone who didn't have access to a car, and so we would schedule a Lyft ride for them there and back. And so thinking creatively, or like when we were out of the COVID years, we realized, oh, we can do some of this virtual. And so like people would Zoom in sometimes, and yes, it makes your life a little more complicated, but it allows everybody to come where they're at. I will say the one thing is we set up a really good job at the beginning of saying the importance of being there so that people really try not to miss. Because once you have, I noticed like once you have like one person miss a class, people are like, oh, I can miss a class. You're like, no, I want you to think about that. So really instilling that like it's very important. Because you can hear we all name the one that we missed. I missed the one on school budget, so I'm like, I still wish that I got to do it again with other classes.
I was gonna say,
And I was a principal, so I'd done that. But it would have been helpful to do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just another piece with logistics is you can offer some additional support staff.
Yeah. So I know everyone's got day jobs to get back to, and so as we're wrapping up, any like last quick, like if you were going to give the Chicago team any thoughts or advice as they're about to go recruit this class, get them through the learning program, is there anything that you can think of as like, this is my thought or advice for you?
Well, I would say one of the things that I appreciated as an educator was having the different perspectives of people because, my mom asked me the question, she was like, why are there so many people who are like not educators in the school board school? And I said, because they all touch some facet of our students, whether they're community partners or mental health partners or whatever it is. So for me as an educator who was in my educator kind of pigeonhole, to hear somebody else who had another perspective was like, oh, okay. So in thinking about the class that you recruit, thinking about like the diversity of voices that are there, where people are coming from, and really thinking about like, especially for this first group, like how is it that you want them to show up in the community now? It's like now that you have done school board, because that's the thing, like it's like, so you did school board school, so it's like, so what are you doing now? Right? So you want to think about like what is the impact that you want those individuals to have on their Chicago community.
That's good.
I guess, and this might be more of a question for you all, but because I'm from Chicago and I know how big geographically, because you're looking at all the CPS?
Oh.
Jesus, okay, so geographically, that's a lot of space to cover, but I think it's so important that you touch the whole landscape of the city, because what you don't wanna have is it looking like, oh, it's just for the Locust Square folks, or it's just for the South Side, or it's just for this particular group, cause that will taint it. So it's very important, and I can appreciate how, I don't know how many folks y'all got on the ground, but this woman was everywhere. When we started out at the beginning of the thing, at the beginning it was just her, but Cincinnati is no way, no wise as big geographically. So you need some touch points in all of those areas, cause you all know Chicago is a melting pot of opinions and everything. And so if you really want that diversity of voice, and the expectation is that those school board members can represent children from across, and I think that's the thing really that has to be, that's a big challenge, quite frankly, is you have 21 people, which sound like a lot, y'all, but they need 21 people, for real. About 3 times the size of ours, because y'all about 3 times the size of our school district. But to have people come in and just be united on the fact that we're here for all children. You're not here, this is not the ward system where you come in and represent your part of the community and all that. You have to come together as a school board member to represent all children. And so how do you do that? And I think that's part of the challenge of school board school in that landscape of Chicago, is getting everybody on the same page. It's about all of the children. And so please, please try to get as much representation from the various communities as you can, geographically, culturally. Y'all know the drill. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's tough.
Yeah, I would fully agree with that, and I think what then part 2 of that is not shying away from any of those more controversial topics, like what we were talking about earlier, because that's where the real growth would happen.
Yes.
And one of the things I really appreciated about being in school board school was it's rare that you can get in a room with people and talk about issues like race, gender, sexuality, and like really have good conversations, but we actually did that in school board school. Everywhere else it feels a little bit like you're kind of tiptoeing around, right? But it's the place to do it. I would not shy away from it at all. And then somebody mentioned this earlier, but the alumni events I think are really important.
Yes, they are. Yeah, and building a bench of people to help you for the next go around is really what you need. You gotta have a bench.
People who come back for a school board school pencil case or for a $10
And for
grader.
food.
What is it?
Mug.
Oh,
There's one in
there's one right
Northville.
there. Do you want that one? Oh, there you go.
When I tell you I bubble wrapped mine when I went to
Oh yeah, nobody's ever, don't touch my school.
I was so, he knew it, I'm sorry.
Somebody broke it.
I'm so sorry. He's trying to put it together.
Should wrap it as his
Yes.
process.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know if did you get to finish?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm learning with intention, so not just learning for the sake of learning. She actively had us, really focused on like each session. We were showing up and we knew what we were going to be working on, but the work was not happening in terms of the materials that was provided. We had to do that on our own, right? So we actually had to show up ready and prepared and equipped to have the conversation and engage in the conversation. Those difficult, right, controversial conversations. But we had to make sure that we were responsible and diligent about doing the work on our own time so that we could show up and be very proactive with what we were supposed to gain from that day.
And the educator came out of it. She want us to read all that? Like, okay.
But I think that's why
Agree.
we would really, why all of us, I think we're able to walk away with so much information, and really to be in a position of applying it because we had to be prepared to apply it in that moment.
Yeah, definitely. So.
I feel like we could talk
I
forever,
know.
but I know you all are in the middle of your work day, so thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you.
coming. And
Yeah,
for our
yeah.
crew, we'll just take like a couple minutes, just clean up, and then we'll head back over to the table. So we'll say thank